What is up, everybody? This is Alex from IHE TV, and I'm continuing the string of Stranger Things videos, capping it off with a Season 4 retrospective review with the last season in mind, with my curiosity peaking after finishing the atrocious last season and wondering to myself, it wasn't always like this, right? So in the last 20 days or so, I've been rewatching this slowly but surely and finished it last night, and I have some thoughts that I'm going to babble on about. In no particular order, I'm just going to go through some of my notes. Some of the things that came to mind. It's actually quite a cool poster, except that tagline sucks. Every ending has a beginning. So I only saw this season once when it came out, just about 4 years ago now. So I didn't remember too much outside of enjoying the introduction and inclusion of Vecna and where that kind of plot coalesced, as well as this whole murder mystery angle and the surprising brutality of it. Some of the new characters are good. It sat kind of positively in my head. So what's changed now on a second watch, now that the surprise nature is no longer in play and we know how this resolves? There was a lot of foreshadowing here for where season 5 was going to go as far as how badly put together it was going to be, with the season definitely peaking at episode 7, the massacre at Hawkins' lab. That feels like the main arc of the season, the main meat of the story, and it's after that that things really start quickly falling apart. And I saw a comment on my Stranger Things documentary videos saying, Stranger Things wants to be Lord of the Rings so desperately, but winds up being The Hobbit, and it really shows, especially in that last episode, which I'll get into more detail shortly. My memory served me well, with the best stuff of the season being the kind of flashbacks to the experiments and the whole reveal with number 1 and the Vecna and the serial killer aspect. That's like a good hook. That had more urgency to it than the previous 2 seasons, at least, for me. I really like Joseph Quinn's character. He was a good inclusion. That was a really good idea, incorporating the whole satanic panic and metal music and trying to give him this arc of going from a coward to a hero, which I don't think they do particularly well. And they just don't really utilize him properly. I feel like, well, now we know what we know about how little planning there was for these last couple seasons, why you wouldn't introduce a character like this to have a greater arc across the 2 seasons. That would have been really satisfying, instead of having to rush something together. I still don't really understand, like, what he had achieved with his sacrifice. He, like, distracts some bats. They do a very poor job of communicating why he needs to do that. He, like, I guess the implication is that the bats would fly off and eat other important characters. The execution of all that is super messy, and it's a shame because I really like the performance and what he brings to the cast. Out of the main kids in the season, excluding 11, Lucas is kind of the only one that has something to do as far as like an arc that grows and changes him as a character, him becoming like a popular sports guy that clashes with the nerdy D&D players. That was a good angle, fleshed him out a fair bit, gave him lots to do with Max as well. And the stuff with Vecna kind of being a mind flayer or picking on characters that have some kind of trauma and using that against them is really dark and depressing in a way that I thought was cool and raised the tension. With the first few episodes focusing on these random characters you don't really know, but showing them being brutally like snapped apart and their eyes exploding in blood. So by the time that's applied to a character you know, that's cool. What that does to the story, what it does to the tension. If only they had the balls to commit. Because the performance for the death scene is really good from Lucas here. And it does feel like something that would be okay, we're not playing games anymore, we need to stop this guy. It's gotten too far. Starting the last season with that would be, to me, a fitting choice. Especially with where we see how this Max stuff plays out. Where even though she's snapped and is like in a coma and her eyes are exploded, she's fine. By the end of it, there's like no consequence for it. It retroactively hits a lot less hard as I remember it coming across in that first watch, where everything's a surprise. The big Avengers a million characters lineup thing starts being a real issue this season, where most of the cast has very little to do really. So you get into these weird situations where you have like Winona Ryder in Russia that just feels so out of place, and Will has basically nothing to do and it's just kind of awkwardly third wheeling like every scene he's in. And this really comes to a head in that last episode, which I can't even talk around anymore. I was kind of blown away how bad it was. The self-indulgence and the big scale stuff just doesn't work for me, and it kind of collapses under its own weight with this Lord of the Rings kind of reunion stuff, like filling this gargantuan like 2-hour 20-minute long runtime. It's so self-indulgent with that stuff. So when you get to like this scene in the last episode that has to write how kind of goofy it is into the dialogue itself, with this character saying like, oh, I can't believe I'm talking about my relationship problems right now when it's like the apocalypse and stuff, which is just this writing problem coming to a head where they have so many characters, and Robin really has nothing to do in this season, or in season 5 really. I know it's an unpopular opinion or whatever, but I would have liked her to just stay a season 3 character and maybe have like a cameo moment in the last season if it was more elegantly put together, but she really doesn't add add much to me when there are already so many characters that are being introduced or need fleshing out or something to do at least. The Russian arc is so strange with, again, another character they should have committed to keeping in the grave. Like Hopper really should have stayed gone at the end of season 3, because now like that episode also has no punch to it, and it doesn't really feel like you lost that much or sacrificed that much to get out of this predicament. Like everyone's fine, a lot of it's just played for humor, with another retroactive nick against it being the whole Demogorgon prison fight thing, where they have like 7 or 8 men fighting one Demogorgon who barely stand a chance, but all they needed to be was a mom with a smashed bottle and they could have dealt with it fine. I do think when they return to the prison, it's way more of a fun kind of set piece setup than the first half of it. That just it seems to just go on and on. But there's a very Resident Evil kind of feeling when they come back and it's been overrun by the dogs and the Demogorgon. That was kind of fun, even if all the plot around the Russia stuff is so convoluted and bizarre. And not to make this video just about ragging on season 5 non-stop, but this season kind of does what the last season needed to do, where it brought the Demogorgons in, it had the dogs come back, introduced a new thing with the bats, and also Vecna. So it's doing a lot, and up until the last couple episodes do a decent job with it. But yeah, everything is utterly deflated with that last episode. They show that Vecna, I hate that shot of him being like pulled into the other realm and he becomes this CG like creature. That's too far. But they show in the last episode he like uses the Force on a bunch of smoke and kind of like creates the Mind Flayer or something in the form of a Black Widow, going back to all these flashbacks of the kid. I don't know why they needed to even explain things like that, where the cosmic horror of the Mind Flayer should have been the focus. Him just being sent to a different dimension by 11 is cool, and so is the idea of like the Mind Flayer using him in some form, which they sort of imply in that last season with this like rock that makes him evil or whatever was going on. I can't really recall a lot of like the actual plot details because it doesn't really make much sense to me, and it's so overly explained and over the top when it really didn't need it to be. Just keep it simple, stupid. All of the upside down gooey stuff looks a lot better than that last season. The way they shoot and light Vecna is a lot better. I don't really like his Marvelified epic redesign for that last season in comparison, where this weird like gummy bear, more reserved thing is way more enjoyable to me, especially in the first half of the season where he's just kind of playing with his food. And speaking of that, I still don't really understand like what he was achieving by killing all these kids. There's a character that mentions the scientist character, Papa, who says that everyone he kills kind of increases his power and like becomes one with him type idea. So now I was just thinking about season 5 and like, so why does he steal 12 kids at once, connects them to a tentacle? They just did such a poor job of communicating like his motivation or why any of that is important. So once it gets past the reveal of like, oh, Vecna is one, just doesn't really give you satisfying answers to a lot of it. But yeah, the upside down stuff, I like the use of that set in the roof of that trailer with the gravities all kind of whack. That's like a fun use of that idea. When you flick through characters on the wiki, it's like, oh yeah, this guy was in it. The pool riser scientist character, I like his inclusion. And he's just forgotten, I guess, after this point. He has no conclusion or inclusion at all in that last season. Even though he's one of the few characters that has more of a plot importance, he can add something that a lot of characters can't with his kind of context and knowledge of what's going on. Yeah, the last line on here is so depressing. He is never mentioned again for the remainder of the series, with it speculating that he seemingly survived, but no one knows. Cool, man. And the same for that stoner Argyle character. I don't mind him. He was actually good comedic relief, but he doesn't even get like a cameo in that last season. I know he's not like important or anything, but just kind of a weird choice. I guess he went back to California and is just chilling. Oh, one thing about the flashback scenes, the de-aged 11 it's so creepy looking. That's a big no from me, even if I like where the story kind of goes. So they reveal that the Martin Brenner character was alive the whole time, and this is one of the things of the lack of planning that really, I feel like it was a mistake with how they treated him. They go to the effort of bringing him back so they can have more story with him, kill him towards the end. He's like sniped by a random soldier like a couple times. And it's like, what, you couldn't just keep him around for like one more season? Like there's more they could have done with him, given him a much more satisfying conclusion to his arc. He really feels like he should have been there instead of the Sarah Connor character who did nothing. Just a missed opportunity. So yeah, and then getting to the final ending, the implications of where it was going and what it was doing. I'd forgotten how kind of enormous it is with like this earthquake destroying buildings and like killing tens of people and like going throughout the entire town, exploding everything and everyone. Like I'd completely forgotten how big the scale was and how it kind of implies where it's going. But then season 5 again being like, no, we just kind of put like boards over it and just nailed them down. It was fine. It's like, what? The direction they went just does not match with what they were presenting here, and it's even crazier knowing they had zero plan. None. They had no clue where they were going to take this. They've wrote themselves into a corner, and it makes this ending just mean nothing now. Like, none of this shit has any payoff or goes anywhere. What were you doing? Why did you do this? With the last episode in particular having some really bad scenes of like unconvincing dialogue and them clearly not having like an angle. Like the reunion between Mike and Hopper is so like awkward and not in a way that seems intentional. They're just so desperate to draw out like emotion from these reunions. It just feels like you haven't done enough to justify this. And then yeah, this is egregious, this stuff. Like this is not the vibe of the last season at all. It's wild they did this without any plan. I just can't wrap my head around why you would do this. Why, when making season 4 specifically, knowing it was going to be the penultimate season, you wouldn't have mapped something out, something even loose that you could play with, but they didn't do that. It's like their biggest show ever. Like, why does this happen again and again with these big fucking franchises? They get too big for their own boots. Star Wars did it, Stranger Things did it. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. So yeah, just to wrap this up, I really like it up to episode 7, where the story just kind of ends and then gets so ridiculously stupid and kind of perfectly leads into the stupidity of season 5 in a way that I'd forgotten. It makes a lot of sense now, you know, the emphasis, sound effects, the self-indulgence and needless scale was definitely foreshadowed, especially in that last bloated episode. A lot of good concepts and ideas, just messy, man. And that probably concludes my coverage of this series. It's a shame we've just got another one of these examples of a big franchise kind of getting too big for itself and forgetting what it was, what made it. So let me know your thoughts on what you remember out this season, if you've rewatched it recently, how you feel about it, and I'll see you on the next vid.